So y'all, today we're going to be reading the last chapter, chapter 15 of Soulless, The Case Against R. Kelly by Jim derogatis. I just kind of took snippets out of the book about the case to give us a clue as to what has been going on. Just a more in-depth clue because we didn't really have a lot of clues during Surviving R. Kelly. However, I did not read the entire book because the entire book was not about R. Kelly. Some of it was about Jim himself and other people having to do with the case, but not important enough to make a video about, if y'all understand what I mean. Chapter 15, Reckoning. During the reporting that led to this book, I learned the names of 48 women whose lives R. Kelly has significantly damaged and sometimes destroyed. They include Tiffany Hawkins, Javante Cunningham, Aaliyah Houghton, Lizette Martinez, Andrea Kelly, Tracy Sampson, Patrice Jones, Maxine Daniels, Deleon Richards, Montana Woods, Rashona Landfair, Lisa Van Allen, Geronda Pace, Dominique Gardner, Kitty Jones, Asante McGee, Hallie Calhoun, Azriel Clary, Joy Savage, Faith Rogers, and others whose names have never become public. There's very good reason to believe that there are many more. Just as disturbing, I put the number of people who knew about or witnessed that damage in the thousands. Among them are the employees of record labels, recording studios, independent publicity firms, concert promotion companies, music venues, rehearsal studios, radio stations, video outlets, magazine websites, and newspapers. Many of these people were on his personal payroll: musicians, DJs, personal assistants, lawyers, accountants, spokespeople, tour managers, roadies, drivers, and security guards. Then there were workers at R. Kelly's favorite hotels, restaurants, high-end gyms, and he believes that he is a god, y'all. And y'all know it's true. Y'all know if a celebrity approaches you in a public place and you feel like you are one in a million and this could possibly never happen to you again, I bet you would take some money and keep quiet too, thinking that it's never going to come back on you. No one's ever going to find out. When R. Kelly made it big time, he turned into a monster. Barry Hankerson, Darrell McDavid, Jive Records, all of them could have helped Robert by not allowing him to have his way, of course. Demetrius Smith could have helped too. He did bring Tiffany Hawkins to a lawyer, and Tiffany stands as the first person who tried to stop R. Kelly. But talking to Edgars in 2018, Demetrius Smith confessed that no one asked the ages of the girls in R. Kelly's orbit because their mamas let them stay out all night. He's not wrong. Some of the parents of R. Kelly's teenage girlfriends need to be added to the list of enablers too. As testimony during R. Kelly's 2008 trial made clear, Greg and Valerie Landfair knew about the relationship between the star and their teenage daughter, Rashona. Aside from the video itself, which I will never be able to unsee, the image that haunts me comes from the sworn testimony at the trial by the singer's personal assistant, Lindsay Perryman, who also saw Rashona accompanied by her parents bring a pillow and an overnight bag to the recording studio so she could spend the night. Greg, Valerie, and Rashona did not speak to me for this book, and they've refused to speak publicly to anyone since 2000. If Rashona's parents were paid by R. Kelly, as many sources believe, the benefits were fleeting. Greg and Valerie Landfair have filed for bankruptcy 3 times, the first in August 2007, almost a year before the trial began. The court eventually discharged debts of nearly $450,000, and the second time they filed for bankruptcy, the judge dismissed the filing because the required 8 years between bankruptcy claims had not yet passed. The third time, in December 2016, the court provided debt relief of $100,000. I spoke to several parents of the girls who received cash settlements in exchange for signing non-disclosure agreements. None of them were perfect. Show me a parent who is. But none had reason to suspect their daughter would be seduced by a wealthy celebrity whose music she loved after meeting him in, say, Lena McLean's choir class, or at a radio station's expo for Today's Black Woman, at Evergreen Plaza, or at Ventura Mall, or at the Rock and Roll McDonald's after her prom. Many of these girls had never had a real romantic relationship. Some had never even had intercourse. They were young, not just in age, but in maturity. They didn't have the experience to suspect R. Kelly's professions of love as a tool of a predator who, one, I believe, will come to stand as the worst in the history of popular music, which, given the art form's often despicable history, is particularly sickening distinction. R. Kelly became an expert at separating young girls from their parents, families, and friends. Sources say, especially if they were from underprivileged neighborhoods, he's really good with people who don't have material things. The former associate told me again 2 decades ago, if you ever read about a pedophile, their whole life revolves around how to gain confidence for their desires. Robert geared his whole life and career around this. He was attacking families. So just so you guys do not get lost, we are now moving to a section of the book about Asante McGee. And so Asante goes on to say that Robert asked her if she was sure that she wanted to be in his world, because his world is not like any other world. And she was like, yes, she's sure. And so she said that she believed he loved her and she loved him. She used to travel and go to different shows and stuff. And he actually introduced her to the other girls in his cult, including the women he called his trainer. She was the same woman Deronda Johnson had met. The trainer bragged of starting her relationship with R. Kelly when she was just 15. And she bragged of being friends in high school with Rashona Landfair. Asante McGee watched R. Kelly having intercourse with this trainer who was 30 at the time. She entered one of the doors. You have to knock. You need his permission. And he told her to come in. He called her a female dog. He said, female dog, get down on your knees. She came in the room butt naked and she got on her knees in a dog position. And he was just asking her questions like, how long have you been with me? How many shows have you gone to? He was asking those questions and she was answering. And then he was like, okay, female dog, get up. And then he told her to suck his, Asante McGee never saw R. Kelly hit any of the girls he called his babies, but she did witness what she called other kinds of abuse for breaking his rules. He left Azriel Clary on the bus for like 3 days, and she was not allowed to come out. He criticized her for not doing her homework, even though Azriel wasn't in school. R. Kelly did not physically abuse Asante McGee, but she said she did experience mental abuse and intercourse abuse. He would try to make me believe these things. He would try to feed your head with a lot of things. You want to satisfy him so bad and wanted his approval that you were willing to go to any level. R. Kelly took video of their encounters, which surprised Asante at first. When I saw the light flashing, it took me by surprise, and I was like, what? And he would put it on his phone, iPad, whatever is near, and he show his friends. She said he orchestrated threesomes with her and another of the girls, and he demanded acts of intercourse humiliation that I didn't approve of. I don't care about your preferences, but for you wanting me to do these things to you, I just couldn't get with it. It bothered me. Those acts and the realization that her housemate, Azriel Clary, was only 17, prompted Asante to begin rethinking her relationship with R. Kelly. I have a 17-year-old daughter myself, and I think that was the biggest wake-up call. When I saw Azriel with him, it took me back. This could be my daughter. I just don't know. I just knew that it was not right, and I just couldn't understand what a man almost 50 is doing with someone the same age as his daughter. That's when I realized it was more of a mind control thing. He likes when you talk like a little girl. When Azriel was doing stuff with him, he wanted her to sound like a little girl, so the whole voice would have to change. Everything was building up, said Asante. The end came after R. Kelly berated her for wearing shorts and a tank top instead of a jogging suit on a 102-degree summer day. In my head then, I'm gone. Echoing what R. Kelly's friend Kim had written years earlier in her book, Starstruck, Asante concluded that Robert was the sweetest person you can meet, but R. Kelly was a monster. Kitty Jones told a similar story, but she said R. Kelly did hit her during a relationship that lasted from 2011 to 2013. She said that she was in a situation where she felt trapped, and she gave up everything for that, and it wasn't worth it. As a radio personality with 97.9 The Beat in Dallas, she met the singer when the Love Letter Tour played the Verizon Theater in Grand Prairie, Texas on June 19, 2011. R. Kelly gave her his number, and they began talking and texting. Eventually, she quit her job to join him, lured by his offer to dance on stage as a part of the threesome in the cell. 35 at the time, she said she looked 22. That's what attracted him, because he was really shocked when he found out that she was a little older than she looked. Over time, R. Kelly introduced Jones to other women in what she also called the cult. The first woman she met, who was then nearing age 30, was Rashona Landfair. As in the past, when approached in 2017, Rashona declined to speak to me in advance of the BuzzFeed News article. I asked him, "How long have you known Shauna?" said Kitty Jones. He said, "I don't like people asking me my business, but I raised her." Those were his words. Kitty Jones later saw out and watched the infamous video for which R. Kelly was tried and acquitted. It registered to me at that moment what I was seeing, what I was watching. That was the girl he introduced me to. She never stopped coming around the whole time that I was living in Chicago. Several indictments prompted Kitty Jones to leave in September of 2013. I got tired of the abuse, and I got tired of feeling like I was just there whenever he wanted some. I had to put up with all of these things, including intercourse acts that made her uncomfortable. I was too afraid to share these things with friends and family that cared about me. I was really going through hell. R. Kelly made her perform in threesomes with other girls, she said, and he filmed their intercourse activities. Then in the spring of 2013, she and several of the girls ate with him at a Subway restaurant down the block from the Ohio Street recording studio. Jones claimed that R. Kelly took offense when she chatted with the male cashier, dragged her outside, threw her against a tree, and kicked, choked, and slapped her. I couldn't believe that he was bold enough to do that in open broad daylight in front of people. And sure, somebody out here knew who it was R. Kelly, but maybe they didn't think it was, because who would be that bold to do that if you're someone people can recognize? Kitty Jones endured other alleged incidents of physical abuse. She initially spoke to me off the record, only deciding to let me use her name not long before the BuzzFeed News published the story. On Monday or Tuesday, December 17th or 18th, two men visited Alexander at his new firm's office. They occupied part of a floor at 640 North LaSalle Drive, a block from the Rock and Roll's McDonald's. The two men knew Alexander had represented Tiffany Hawkins, and he understood how R. Kelly operated. He did right by Tiffany, and they wanted to talk to him. Alexander had met Demetrius Smith, and he knew the names of several members of R. Kelly's crew, but he had worked on Tiffany's lawsuit for nearly 2 years. He didn't recognize the men who came into his office, and he said he didn't know and cannot remember their names. The men had a videotape they wanted to show him. The office didn't have a VCR, so Alexander and the two men went down the hall to the Act One Studios, a now defunct performing arts school that rented space on the same floor. The tape the men showed Alexander included footage of R. Kelly with two different partners. The first, the men told him, was a girl named Rashona. The second, they said, was gospel singer Deleon Richards, who'd married New York Yankees outfielder Gary Sheffield. Alexander wanted nothing to do with the video of Richards and Kelly. I told the guys who brought it that I would not be a part of what seemed like a scheme to extort/blackmail R. Kelly regarding a consensual intercourse relationship. Alexander wrote via email Alexander had told the two men that if they did anything with the video, that they would probably go to jail. So, y'all, I had to go and see who Deleon Richards was, because I've never heard of that name before, but she looks familiar. Y'all leave your thoughts and opinions down below and let me know where y'all have seen this woman. Harpo, who is this woman? As it would most people of conscience, the tape of R. Kelly and Rashona sickened Alexander. He told the two men who visited him that he would be willing to help the teenager if she wanted to file a lawsuit or press criminal charges against R. Kelly. They wanted Alexander to hold on to the tape, but he refused to keep child videos in his office. They left with it, but they said they would return with Rashona and her family. Alexander scheduled the meeting. Ultimately, Rashona and her parents, Greg and Valerie, remained loyal to R. Kelly and never spoke to anyone, media or investigators. Alexander never saw the two men with the tape again, and he never spoke to the Landfairs or Sparkle. He followed every word about the case against R. Kelly in the papers through the 6-year wait for the trial, and once the proceedings started, his name didn't come up once, and he was glad it didn't. Around 11:30 a.m. on February 22nd, I got a call from Geronda Pace. "They've got him," she said. "They finally got him." Kim Foxx's office had a mid-afternoon presser to announce the second time the state of Illinois indicted Robert Sylvester Kelly. I covered it for the New Yorker, still a journalist on a seemingly never-ending beat, and Abden joined me because he said he just felt like he had to be there. Kim Foxx spoke for 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and she did not take questions. The state charged R. Kelly with 10 counts of criminal abuse involving 4 persons, 3 of whom were minors, for incidents that took place between 1998 and 2010. Each of the 10 counts carries a sentence of 3 to 7 years in prison. At that press conference, and another 24 hours later, Kim Foxx identified the persons only by their initials. Geronda told me she was JP, and Kim Foxx says that RL had been identified in 2 scenes on a 45-minute videotape by her aunt, S.E. She was obviously talking about Rashona Landfair and Stephanie Edwards.